There's something special about older cars that have been retrofitted with modern drivetrains, modern electronics, and this Datsun 1600 beside me here is a perfect example. We're here with Dylan, the owner and builder of the car, to find out a little bit more about it. Dylan, let's talk about the whole reason you decided to build this car. What was the driver for you?
I just wanted to build the fastest 1600 in the world, basically.
Okay, you've got lots of options to go down when it comes to an engine and drivetrain, and you've sort of gone right to the top shelf, as I would see it. Talk to us about what you've got in there.
V8 VK56, it's a V8 engine, came from Cali Racing. It's been stroked to 6 litre, makes approximately 850 horsepower. In the back, we've got a Albins Transaxle to help us with the weight balance of the vehicle.
So let's just talk for those who sort of don't follow the Australian Supercars. There was a period of time where Cali Racing were running the Nissan Altima, and they developed the VK56 engine package to run in those cars with reasonable success.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the stroke 6 litre version that you're running now and what they actually ran in Supercars at the time?
We've had the advantage of all the development they put into that engine over that period of time. It's essentially just a bigger and better version of that, yeah.
In terms of challenges fitting an engine like this into what is a small car, Datsun 1600, how difficult is that?
Extremely difficult. One thing we had going for us, being a 90-degree V8, it sits a lot lower. It's dry sumped, so we're able to get it down. Fortunately, it just fit between the strut towers. But
that would be hard to come back from. You actually need to keep the strut towers for the Pro Open Class rulebook, don't you?
That's correct, yeah. So we did the measurements. We actually got a dummy block from them and fitted it in first and made sure it was all going to work. Fortunately, it did. Another thing being it's sitting so low, we've had to bring the steering rack over the top of the engine.
When you're building a car like this that's so modified, every single part of the car has been changed from factory.
Yep.
How do you go about this? Is this a case of sort of scanning and modelling the parts in CAD, or are you using cardboard-aided design to do it the old-fashioned way, or something in between?
It depends on the specific component, I suppose. A lot of stuff we were doing, like when we started the build, I got a bit involved in like 3D printing, so a lot of components we'd model up in, CAD or Fusion 360. We'd print prototypes, see if it would work, and then we'd get them CNC'd from real material. So before we started recording, just talking off camera, you mentioned you actually learned some of those skills through some of our courses. So obviously I've got to lean into that a little bit. Talk to us about how you found those courses and how that's actually changed the trajectory of what you could do on this car. Yeah, well, it was really great going into a program, I guess, like Fusion 360. I come from an engineering background, but I wouldn't call myself an engineer because I'm doing construction. Really understand, it gives you confidence in using the program, I guess I would say, and the capabilities of what you can do and use it more efficiently and better than what you could otherwise, just trying to learn it as you go and getting frustrated and pulling your hair out.
In terms of the parts that you're 3D printing, you mentioned there it sounds like prototyping, basically making sure the parts fit before you actually get them CNC machined.
Yeah.
But are there any sort of final production parts that are also 3D printed?
Yeah. The intake boxes are 3D printed. There's lots of little stuff on the inside. Our Motec PDM mount, parts of the steering wheel.
All right, just coming back a little bit, you mentioned the drivetrain there with an Albins Transaxle. So that's actually rear mounted. So you've got the differential and gearbox all in one unit at the back of the car. Yeah. Is this just a weight distribution aspect, or is it sort of packaging? Was it too hard to fit an inline longitudinal gearbox in the transmission tunnel?
A weight distribution that drove that decision primarily. And even the bracketry for that, now that I remember, we made it as a 3D print before we got the finally CNC. So, yeah.
All right, so suspension. I'm going to guess here that standard Datsun 1600 suspension was absolutely not going to cut it.
No.
And it's another case where if you've got a blank sheet of paper, there's so many options with your suspension kinematics that it can be difficult to optimize that. Can you talk to us about your process?
I suppose the dual A-arm setup front and rear is the optimum. Yeah, we developed that on computer to get the optimal geometry, made sure it fit within the package. A lot was governed by the rule book in terms of the aero and how far we could extend the aero, then obviously fit the wheels within that aero. So it's a bit of a balancing act, but that's how it came about.
Looking at the wheels as well, it looks like you've stolen some more parts out of the Supercars parts bin.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, fortunately...
Does that go as far as the hubs as well? I see you've converted to centre lock there to suit those Supercars wheels.
We're using V8 Supercar uprights. We sort of had to use as many parts as we could to keep the cost down and adapt them to fit the car, rather than trying to customise parts ourselves and spend mega dollars.
I guess in a lot of respects, there's no point reinventing the wheel there. If there's off-the-shelf parts that you can salvage from Supercars, then why not?
Exactly, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Aero package again with World Time Attack. If you don't come with a pretty comprehensive Aero package, you're just not going to be competitive. So how did you develop that?
So I'd been coming to the World Time Attack as a spectator, and that's what really opened my eyes, I guess, into the potential of aerodynamics. I think it's fair to say that World Time Attack, over the 14 years we've been coming, you've seen the Aero step up, and I think for the guys coming here and looking, it really does illustrate just how powerful a properly designed aerodynamic package can be. Exactly. And so I hooked up with Andrew Brilliant from A&B Aero and met with him, told him about the concept, and that was a huge eye-opening experience, and that's how it sort of developed from there.
So how does that work when you're working with Andrew to develop the package of parts? Obviously, there's the rule book that ultimately says what you can put where and how big it can be, but then developing parts that are going to work with the rest of the chassis, the bodywork, how does that work?
Yeah, well, he takes a 3D scan of the car, and then there's certain components like the engine, which we also had 3D scan. We place that in the engine bay. The wheels, he has to put within there, tweak things, I suppose, and then come up with the best package that works in terms of, the highest downforce and
less drag.
Yeah.
At this point, though, you're talking about parts that exist only in the virtual world. So what is the step from the virtual part in a CAD package to a physical aero component that you can bolt onto the car?
Once he makes the aero package, it gets broken down into a series of components. We then had them CNC'd from different types of materials like MDF to make bucks, to make the carbon fibre components off those bucks. So, it comes from the CAD design of those components to CNC the bucks, essentially.
And in terms of actually carrying out that composite work, is that something you undertook yourself, or are you outsourcing that?
No, I had to get Australian Fibreglass and Composites in Dandenong. They do a lot of V8 Supercar work, and they produced all the carbon fibre on the car for me.
Looking at the car, it doesn't look like it would weigh very much. Have you got a final weight on it?
It's about 1,000 kilos. There's a little bit more weight we can pull out of it. That was sort of going to be something a bit further down the track.
850 horsepower obviously wasn't enough for you. You've also gone ahead and added nitrous. So talk to us about how you will use that nitrous.
Well, the nitrous there's only certain points which I think we'd be able to use it within the track, but it was just to give us a little bit more acceleration off certain corners on the track.
So is this going to be something that the driver will control, so physically have to press a button to spray the nitrous, or is it going to be controlled via mapping?
That'll be GPS controlled, yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, the car did suffer a bit of an accident in testing, so unfortunately it's not running here. Are we likely to see the car back next year competing in Fury?
Definitely. We want to keep the momentum going. We pushed really hard to get here, so we're already trying to fix it. I wanted to bring it up here still because we'd been through all the hard work, but at the same time, I'd rather be back at home working on it to get it back here. But yeah, the idea is we want to get it back on the track as quick as possible and get as much testing in for next year, so we'd be faster than what we ever were this year anyway. Yeah.
Oh, look, it's a shame to not see the car run. We'll be back next year to see it. That is absolutely a work of art and a credit to you, so thanks for your time, Dylan.
Thanks very much. Cheers.